What's up, YouTube? It's me, the Artisan MC, and today I am going to review for you to X-Men 97 Episode 5. Remember it. Well, if you're watching this on Patreon, you could say that I read the title and I knew exactly what the title was, that it was Gambit's catchphrase, remember it, right? The name's Gambit, remember it, right? So I had an idea that the episode was centered around Gambit from that in the thumbnail, right? Well, I literally just finished the episode not 30 seconds ago. And yeah, it did. This episode was there was high emotion in it, but I wouldn't say I'm feeling high emotion. I wouldn't say that. I was shocked at some points by some of the things that I saw in this episode, but the emotional part for me wasn't completely there. Wasn't completely there. Um, in this episode, we take a break from what was going on with Storm and Forge with the adversary, which is the part I thought I was going to see today, which is not, which made that last episode filler. This episode, episode 5, picks up with the story of what happened in the time since Madeline Pryor left the school and how the X-Men have been getting along. In this episode, you're introduced to a lot of cameos, one of which being Trish Tilby as a news reporter who is like girlfriend of Hank McCoy, right? Somebody that he's involved with and likes, which I thought was cool. It was a fine little nod. As soon as I saw her, I said, Trish Tilby. Okay, there she goes. That's cool, right? And they are doing kind of a report, as it would be, documentary style, in a sense, with the X-Men and about Genosha being recognized as its own mutant state, in a sense, by the United Nations. And all the mutants flocking there, and some of the X-Men, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit, decide to go there for those ceremonies to meet with the council that they have there. The rest of the X-Men are back at the mansion, entertaining Trish Tilby with this interview and finding out how everyone is getting along now. I can tell you this. There was a lot of moving parts in this episode, but the main story centered around the final, if you were, come to Jesus moment with between Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto. And the main dish on that platter was the relationship between Rogue and Magneto and how it developed and what was going on with it. Now, I can say that part did give me some feels with what I was seeing there because it was bothering me for some personal fucking reasons, which made it kind of funny. Like, yeah, I was feeling like Gambit, like, yeah, I don't like seeing this shit, right? But I remember that feeling, and that's what was making that part stand out a little bit more for me. Like, I know what you're feeling, bro. Yeah, I got you. So, actually, seeing that Rogue and Gambit finally did have a heart to heart about what was going on with Rogue and Magneto was interesting. I thought there would be more violence in that part. I really did. Not between Rogue and Gambit. No, I just thought Gambit would have went after Magneto. That's not what we got. But what we did get was some interesting, heartfelt stuff because the Rogue and Gambit relationship is interesting in a sense, but it's the one I believe the fans actually like the most. I like Rogue and Gambit being together. I do. Something about the two Southern folks being together seems to work right. And it made me think about something in a little sense that I would think Gambit's power should make him able to touch Rogue. I would think it should be able to because his powers cannot charge organic matter, right? So I would think if he was using his powers and touch something organic, it would probably cancel out her contact with him. I would think, but that's just me thinking about it after all these years, finally just looking at it in a different way, saying, well, maybe he could. Why couldn't he? Whatever. It sucks, but that's the star-crossed lover thing that makes that story with Rogue and Gamera work so well. So, Mr. and Mrs. X, it is. Um, the other story that happens in this, which is being Genosha and Genosha being recognized, brought together two separate stories because this is what I saw in this episode a lot, which is a couple of stories overlaid on top of each other to get one story. Now, you have the Morlocks in this episode in Genosha, which covers part of the next X-Men story, which will be Mutant Massacre, where the Morlocks were kind of wiped out by Sinister in the sewers of Manhattan, right? The other story would be when Magneto was in charge of Genosha. Genosha was set upon by a huge Sentinel and did like try a genocide on some mutants in Genosha. Killed a lot of them. Cassandra Nova, right? So it's a bit interesting to have these two things overlapped onto each other to get the same effect. And the effect is that mutants die in this episode, It is no question. Folks died in this episode. Now, the inclination I got earlier today was from the Angry Man, and I saw his short on Instagram about this is what Saturday morning cartoons in the 90s were. It was stakes. And it made me think, oh, somebody must have died, which is why I rushed home to come watch this episode because I didn't want a spoiler. I hadn't heard anything, I hadn't watched anything, so I knew I needed to watch this episode immediately before the shit went down and I heard anything else. But this is kind of what I thought was happening, that somebody was going to die. And a whole lot of bodies died in this. And I'm not happy about that. I'm just saying it takes two really pivotal stories and merge them together to make one event that you actually understand. Like, this is serious, dude. This is serious. Now, aside from that, you get the overlay of a story with Scott and Jean and Madeline Pryor, to where Scott and Madeline are still having kind of a psychic relationship in a sense going on, right? Communication and whatnot. And Jane finds out about the shit. It intrudes in the astral plane in their little, psychic, tete-a-tete or what have you. Now, this story, in a sense, is overlaying when Jean caught Scott and Emma doing the same thing. Now, that to me, that because Emma Frost is in this episode with Sebastian Shaw as being part of the Hellfire Club, this situation happening with Madeline mirrors that a lot when it happened in the comics. So I'm taking it to be that they just overlaid this into this episode to have Madeline brought back, Emma Frost there, and have this story that happened between Scott and Emma and Jean, and just morph it over into being, pun intended, morph it over to being Madeline, Jean, and Scott situation, which kind of worked. It kind of worked. The part that it didn't work was Jean being all pissed off at Scott about how this is going on, and if he loved them, if he loved her. I'm like, look, we don't understand how long the actual Jean has been gone, but for a while, Scott thought that was Jean, and he was doing enough to know that he was having a baby with this chick. He loved her. He thought it was you. I mean, he is the one man in this position in this universe that has been put in this position to where, yeah, that chick you was banging out and had a baby with, yeah, that's not the real chick. No, that's not even really her. Nope, nope. The real one's back now. Your baby is gone. She's gone, and now you get to deal with the real one again. Like, well, I ain't seen this woman in years. I get it's the same woman. It looks the same, so everything should just work the same, right? No, no, no. I liken it to dating twins. Okay, they look alike. It ain't the same, dude. It's not the same. So Scott is in a really precarious position to actually be getting, grief from Gene about if he loved Madeline or not. Like, well, yes, of course he did. And the most honest answer he could have gave, like, yeah, I love both of you. Basically loving the same person. Look, he didn't make the clone, okay? He did not know it was a clone until she showed up. So it's a tough situation for him, okay? He gave about the best answer he could. Yeah, I love both of you, I think. Yeah, that's as much as you could say. You can't be mad at him for that shit. He didn't know. So I thought that was a little disingenuous of Gene, but that was the only part that bothered me about that. I didn't think she needed to be going in on him about that shit. That should have been the last thing on the list because of the situation that happened. Yeah. But the other parts in this, it's cameos galore. It is cameos galore. Excuse me. While it's cameos galore, there were some that were more important than others. I didn't like the younger ex kids like Glom Thurman and Pixie and those constantly being thrown in there the whole time. I didn't really care about them. It doesn't matter. But the cameo of Cable showing up and speaking to Madeline Pryor and calling her mom. That was. I'm waiting to see my boy Cable show up. I'm waiting to see him show up fully this time. But you got to see what Nathan Summers looks like all grown up. That you got to see Cable come back. And Cable knew that Madeline Pryor was his mother. And they shared a little telepathic communication. It did. So that was actually a really cool moment, especially since you saw how touching the moment was when Madeline gave Nathan up to Bishop to take into the future. To see him come back as a grown man and understand that that is him, and he understands that that is his mother. It's the father and son. I mean, the father and son, mother and son getting to see each other again. So that was actually a touching moment, and for it to end as quickly as it did makes it emotionally carry some weight. Like, oh yeah, and now he's just ripped away from her too again. Like, shit, that time travel. That's the son of a bitch. So I like that part. I like that part a lot. I didn't care for the gala. The gala was just to me the inputting of the Hellfire Gala into this show. I didn't care about the Hellfire Gala when it was happening in the comics. I didn't. Costume designs look interesting, but to me, galas is stuff for chicks. So I did not care about this, and I didn't like how they just made a big deal out of it. Yes, I have some of the costume designs on my Future Fight game and some stuff, but no, I didn't really care for it. That could have been cut out to me just because I didn't care for it. Didn't make it not good. I just didn't care for it at all. So that was it. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say, just in case nobody else has seen any more of it. But there were real stakes in this episode. Real stakes in this episode. And I can say for some of it, there is a reveal. There is a reveal coming up for Gambit. There has to be a reveal coming up for Gambit. And Magneto. Things happen when you piss Magneto off. Oh my god. I liked that a lot. But that's all I'm gonna say about that. I'm not gonna say any more about it. I don't want to spoil it for folks. But X-Men 97, episode 5. Remember it. You need to remember to watch it because if episode 3 was really good to you, episode 5 will set another standard for you. So that's it for this review. Like, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.